Welcome to the Life in Michigan podcast. Life in Michigan is more than an online magazine. We share the stories, experiences, and vibrant personalities that make the Great Lakes state truly unique. In this podcast, we bring you inspiring, heartwarming, and sometimes unexpected conversations with people who call Michigan home. From the rugged beauty of the Upper Peninsula to the bustling creativity of Kalamazoo, we'll cover the stories and define what it means to live, work, and play in Michigan. On today's episode, we are talking with Ed McKenna, author of The Grand Secret, a thrilling murder mystery set against the backdrop of Michigan's most iconic locations, including the legendary Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island. Ed shares the inspiration behind the story, his long journey to publishing, the joys of writing clubs, and why he feels Michigan itself is one of the stars of his novel. Grab a tasty beverage, get cozy, and let's explore with Ed. Ed, it is so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for being on I almost wanted to say Fans with Bands, which is my other podcast, but Life in Michigan. So thanks for being on.
My pleasure, Chuck and Brenda. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm really excited about this.
Excellent. So you are, I believe, out in South Lyon. So I was wondering if you could just give listeners a little background about yourself and, just who you are.
Yeah.
How did you get in Michigan?
Yeah.
I was brought here when I was 5 years old. I didn't have a place. So my dad got transferred from Pittsburgh and he worked for Ford Motor Credit Company and raised us three boys down in Taylor, and married my wife 30 years ago, and we moved from Waterford over to here, and we raised our two girls, and they're all up and out of college and doing their things all over the place. So here we are, empty nesters, ready to go.
All right.
Awesome.
Tell me a little bit about the specific moment or discovery that, like you said, I want to write this book called The Grand Secret, which we're here to talk about a little bit today. Tell us, what sparked that idea?
Well, I've always wanted to write a book, and they always say you should write about something you know about. I always kind of wanted to write about murder. However, I never murdered anybody. That's for the record.
That's good.
Good.
My real job is a salesperson, selling guided tours throughout the world, but my territory is the state of Michigan. And by doing that, been very fortunate to really get to know the state of Michigan. And I love it even more than I ever did growing up, just because I've been able to get out there and see the places that we have. And so I thought, what's probably the most iconic thing here in Michigan that people recognize? And I think the Grand Hotel is one of those icons.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it would be great if this murder occurs at a big event. And to my knowledge, one of the biggest events in the entire state is the Mackinac Policy Conference that's held every end of May or early June, that brings everybody together, the power brokers, the political people, the business leaders. And so that's where the birth of that kind of started. And
so your book is a murder mystery, just to clarify for our listeners that might not be familiar with your book.
That is it. It's a murder mystery. And I sprinkle in a little bit of the UAW history and how they came to be and why that was significant. And I kind of allow this journey to follow along, touching upon some of the iconic highlights of the state of Michigan from a vacation perspective, a beauty perspective, and their significance historically as well.
Yeah, the Grand Hotel is definitely an icon in Michigan. Was there aspects of research or going into the history that you found that you needed to pull into your book?
Yeah, and a lot of that research just came to me organically. In my job, where I go look upon groups, the UAW, some of the UAWs throughout the state have the retirees do trips, and when I would go to the UAW offices, I would see the pictures up there that have some of the iconic moments within the UAW's history, like the Rouge Bridge incident, where Al Ruther and Frankenstein were up there with facing against the Ford security folks, and was all captured on film and photography, getting bludgeoned up there.
Yeah.
And, that caught the attention of the public. And then, of course, the big shutdown strike that occurred up in Flint, where people were getting
Oh yeah.
horrible conditions up there. So
Yeah.
those were the incidents that kind of gave me the historic aspects of the UAW, and I share that within the book as well.
So were there any, as you were going through that and writing the book, were there any like unexpected like discoveries or stories that helped shape the narrative that you didn't know before?
I think little things like, the locks, the Soo Locks up there, they've got their own history where the boats trying to get through and couldn't do it, so they created those locks to allow.
So for
Uh,
our listeners, let's explain what the
Oh yeah.
sulaks are, because we might be talking to people that might not know the sulaks. Can you explain the sulaks a little bit for
yeah,
our non-Michiganders?
bro, absolutely. Putting it, I might not just be describing this correctly, almost like a mini waterfall up there, if you will.
Yeah.
But the ships obviously can't go over a waterfall, so the locks are able to even things up. They put the boats in there, and when they're going up, the boats go up onto the next level, and when they're going the opposite direction, they get down, and they're able to do that and able to continue on through their journey. So that's the unprofessional explanation of the
Nation
Soo
of the
Locks, if you
That's a
sulaks.
good
will.
one.
Yeah.
That's a good
And
one.
it is. And it's like if you're looking, like I'm going to be a Michigander here, if you're looking at your hand and it's up there kind of like, it's the sulaks are actually up in the UP, correct?
Correct.
And they're way over at the tip, kind of like by your pointer finger on the lower bottom, just off from the Mackinac Island, correct? That's where
Actually, they're on the northern part of the Upper Peninsula. So
Yeah.
Sault Ste. Marie in Canada, and then there's Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. So they're right in between there. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
Lake Superior.
it's the
yeah,
border right there. The
yeah.
Yes.
confluence, I think, between Lake Superior and is it Lake Huron? Maybe? No. I think it's the
Um,
river.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, it
so.
is. Yeah.
think so, yeah.
St. Mary, isn't it that the St.
Yeah,
Mary
St.
River?
Mary's. Yep, yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the
Yeah.
raft and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yes.
Yeah, it's cool how you pulled in various like locations through Michigan and I know that the Grand Hotel is special, but are there other parts of Mackinac Island or the kind of the other scenes within Michigan that you felt were very special that you really wanted to make sure you got in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. Detroit River. I mean, that's why Detroit got founded. It's right there. Of course, a lot of people now, that's where they go to play. They get their boats out there. They've got
Yeah.
the River Walk that's spectacular and has a nature center up and down there.
Yeah.
You have Shane Park, which is a great music venue with the performers, and you've got the Detroit River right behind it. And there's some things that occur there in the book.
Yeah.
The UAW building, it's located on the Detroit River. It's one of the more spectacular UAW headquarters in the country, probably. And of course, Traverse City, which is a jewel in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
The Renaissance Center with the restaurant up top.
Yeah.
I used to work there, so that was special to me to be able to share that with people. And
Oh, nice.
really, by sharing these things, I'm hoping that people from out of state will at some point read this and realize we got a cool place to play and live and work here, and they should give us a look,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
for
awesome.
sure. For sure. Um, do so this is like a little secret about Chuck that not a lot of people know, and you're
Uh-oh.
gonna hear it right here.
Right.
It was a couple years ago now. I can't remember the exact year. He gave me for Christmas a
Oh, yeah.
course in writing. It was not a course, it was like a workshop to boot Jumpstart, I think it was called
Yeah,
Jumpstart
jumpstart your
Your
novel.
Novel,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
And it was
cool.
like it was through Schuler Books, I believe.
Yeah.
And we met, and so he gave it to me as a gift, and I was like, oh, okay. I was hoping maybe that idea of that novel would just kind of fade away. But
No
so
pressure,
he's
right?
like, yeah, no pressure, no pressure. And so then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it with you. And I'm like, well, do you have a novel? And he's like, I don't need a novel. I'm just gonna come to the class, And So he gets there, he gets the syllabus, and he has to come to the class with his first idea and like, like I don't know, like 10,000 words of the novel like written. And he's like, I don't
Wow.
even know, right? So he spent a little bit of a terrifying, like 3 weeks prior to the class, like trying to figure out what he was going to write. And I'll let him explain his story, but this is a long-winded way of getting to my next question. Like as he was evolving the characters, Jimmy Hoffa shows up in his novel, which
Very
is kind
cool.
of funny.
All right.
Um, they evolved kind of in a surprising way, and I'm wondering for you, did any of your characters like evolve in surprising ways as you were like getting into the writing process and kind of like, oh, yeah, that's what it means to develop a character? Were any moments like that for your main characters or any of your characters?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of all the movies I've seen and the Jimmy Hoffa type stories
Yeah.
that were right here in our own backyard in Michigan that were true, and maybe even visualizing who as actors may portray some of these people if it were ever to blow up and turn into a movie. So kind of all those types of things. Plus, one of the people, Captain John, is a person in the story, and I have a very good friend who is a professional fisherman, and his name is John. So there is a real Captain John, and I
All
had to
right.
put his profile, if you will, into the story. So yes.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. Yeah. So Chuck, do you want to share your like little plot line for
Well,
yours?
yeah, so I thought it was just going to be like I could observe and or maybe I just had to like throw some, I thought it was more like a writing program. More, I didn't realize it was like a book. So yeah, I had to come up off the fly with some idea. And so Brenda says I've worked, I mean, I have some ideas for a novel. I haven't written it, and that's why I
You have some.
well, I have some, but Ed, you've actually written something, so that's very impressive.
Kudos.
I'm very impressed by that. But my idea basically was that there's a guy who's involved in some kind of nefarious activity, more than like drugs or something like that. But you around the state and sort of related to fishing, you see all these signs at little party stores and stuff that says Walt's Crawlers. And
Yes.
we had used to joke, and there was one that's on the north side of Ann Arbor. It used to be a little party store, and there used to be a sign there saying Walt's Crawlers, and we were like, nobody ever goes into the store, so what the hell's going on there? So then we started joking around. And this has been something that me and Brenda would joke around. It's like, oh, there's some kind of activity going on there. So anyway, what I envisioned was Walt's Crawlers is really it's a witness relocation program. So if so in this case, there's a guy named Jimmy who's involved in a drug thing, and he's gonna his wife is murdered, and he's gonna sell out to the sort of loosely based on Ozark, if you saw that thing.
Yeah, I love
So,
that show. Yeah.
um, so riffing off that, and then he gets into this witness relocation program, and it's Walt's Crawlers. You go to this thing, it's Walt's Crawlers. But really what Walt's Crawlers is a time machine that throws people into the future. So that's how you get relocated.
Wow, I love it.
And that's what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. So he didn't die. He wasn't murdered. He just got relocated into the future. So
Love it. We got all the answers right here. Solving a
Right
lot of
here.
mysteries today.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's an awesome present that you gave Brenda as well. Yeah.
So as far as like your writing routine, I know you've been involved in like locals writers groups and some other conferences. What was that journey like for you? How did you? When did you know you wanted to start writing, and then what is that process like for you when you're writing a book?
Yeah, I would try when I'd be out on the road doing my job, maybe at lunch, find a library or a back room at a restaurant or what have you, and just try and commit an hour of getting as much as I could down on paper or even, pecking at the keys, if you will,
Uh-huh.
and try and read the last page that I ended with to get me into the next place to where I'm going. And sometimes, there wasn't a lot coming out, but it's just a matter of showing up for work and doing what you have to do to keep that moving forward. And that was kind of the basics of the writing process
Yeah.
for that part of it.
When did you start writing? Did you start writing at a young age, or was it
No,
later?
actually, probably only about 20, 25 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? So what
And I
what was
remember reading, if you remember Joe Falls when he was a reporter
Yeah, yep,
in, I think, the Detroit News or
news,
Free
yep.
Press. And I remember there was a personal trainer that I guess was his personal trainer, and he mentioned uh, this personal trainer that wrote a story that was about like really the Art Van family, and it was kind of a thriller suspense thing, but supposedly bringing in some real life stuff. As I read it, and I thought, yeah, this was interesting and good, but I think I could do just as good, if not better. So it made me try and think, well, let's try this and see what
Yeah.
happens. So I just kind of laid out my some discipline on myself and started the process without really knowing how or what you're supposed to do and what goes into it, and then eventually reading books about what you should try and put into it and character development and so on and so forth. And
Yeah, what
that
is
was a
that?
little bit of that.
There's that one book, The Hero's Journey. Did you read that?
No,
Dan, oh shoot,
Campbell?
Campbell, I think. It basically says like that most stories is a hero's journey where they have like some kind of incident that occurs to them and then they're trying to, basically resolve that incident and the process they learn. I'm kind of butchering the whole factor of it, but I was just curious when you said, because I felt that way as well, like trying to write stories as a kid. Yeah, especially in college, I took a creative writing class and just kind of got shot down because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and the professor's like, "What? This is junk." But it was a good
we've
learning
all had
experience too, you know.
that.
And I was, so it's just curious when you said that you had basically just start writing, and then the next thing you know, you're like, I need to like kind of understand some of that stuff. I was just curious if you'd read that book too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was never really good at comprehension when it comes to reading, and writing was not really my thing. So it was a process in developing it and making it better and better each time. Yes.
Awesome.
So you mentioned in some of the material you sent to us your writing group that you have there in South Lyon, and Chuck and I had a little writing group for a small period of time. It was about a year, and
Yeah.
it kind of fizzled. It was nice. We would share our writing, we would get feedback. How did you find your writing group, and what role did they play for you in the process of writing this book?
Yeah, it's actually the South Lyon Writers Group. Fortunate for me, they're right here in the city I live in. We meet at the library the first Saturday of every month. So I was in some of the local, um, like community learning, continuing education type magazines.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to one of their meetings. And if nothing else, you have other people with like-minded, something you're interested in, and everyone has their different goals on why they're in there, but it's someone else that can relate to what you're trying to be involved with. And we kind of help each other out, nurse each other, support each other, and give each other feedback on the writing. Where if you know and no one else that is involved in what you're interested in, it's kind of hard to advance or pull the resources of 10 minds of what they know about that particular genre or and it area of interest. And that elevates everyone when you're being able to share those types of things. So that's what really, really helps. And of course, some people you value more than others based on their experience or focus on that. And when you have people like that, that really helps out a lot.
It does for sure.
Yeah.
I know we sort of like we just jumped right in because we know a bit about the book, but I mean I don't think our listeners, I think we might have skipped over, and I apologize to our listeners. Um, if we haven't done a good job, maybe we'll do that in the show notes. But do you want to share a little bit, like a thumbnail sketch of what the Grand Secret is about? And like maybe even a little excerpt from the book if you want. Um,
Yeah. It's really at this at the Mackinac Policy Conference that's held every year. It's a real life event. The politicians, the governors, um, the political leaders of the states, and all the business people are gathering to really have discussions on how they can make this a better state to live, economy thrive, luring in business, all those types of things. And it's when one night at the end of the evening, the very well-known automotive consultant goes up to the cupola bar on top of the Grand Hotel, and he goes into it after it's closed. No one's in there, and he sees this flurry of activity going in the dark corner, and he realizes someone is getting beat very, very bad. And the people eventually, the two people that are doing this see him, so they realize they have a witness. So he's off and running. Um, and it turns out he finds out that this person that was beat to death was a chief financial officer of Stellantis, the automotive company, who was also someone that he was well acquainted with and somewhat of a friend. So eventually the tables are turned. He's framed for the murder, and he's got the bad guys chasing him. Plus, his family is threatened, and him and his wife need to really get off Mackinac Island and figure out how to get their life back. And so they really have everything going against them. And based on some of their historic acquaintances, they're trying to figure out who and how this occurred. And doing so, they uncover a conspiracy that's costing hundreds of retired UAW workers their lives. So,
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's pretty cool. So when you were working on the Grand Secret, was there any particular part when that you're writing that you're very satisfied with? You were just like, man, this is the best.
actually, I feel good about a lot of different parts. There's the final speech at the end of the conference by Roger Penske, who I pose as the governor, and he's always talking about the state and everything. But then the that scene, how it unfolds, kind of climactically, and I don't want to give too much
Yeah,
away, and
yeah,
No,
the
yeah,
chase
don't.
scene that evolves. So,
yeah.
real proud about that. Real proud about the way the chase scene when the murder is being witnessed that follows that, and a
It'll,
lot of the digging, the investigative parts that this couple has to do um, to figure out, looking at financial statements and things like that to bring in to try and point out weaknesses, that to try and figure out what angle that really brought this murder into play. So a lot of those things I enjoyed, and I think in the end ended up coming away really well, and the dialogue of it as well.
nice,
I
nice.
had a lot of coaching, a lot of feedback from people I valued their opinion very highly. So there was a lot of revisions, but that's how you get from here to
Right.
get
Mhm.
that polished stone where you feel really proud at the end. And
Yeah.
with the feedback I've gotten, I feel like I really have a good product out there.
Awesome. That's cool.
Have you heard from readers? This is kind of like one of my questions I have typed out, so I'm going to read it and it's going to sound like I'm reading it. So, have you heard from readers who had personal connections to the events or settings in the book, that have actually been to that event and participated? Have you heard from any of them, like that attend the annual event?
No, that's a good question. I think I'm the only one that's actually ever attempted or has attended that event. And then Captain John, he's the actual character that I portrayed from a
Yeah.
friend. So other than that, no, I really can't say that. Other than, acquaintances that I know have gone there that I haven't spoken to just because I don't encounter them on a regular basis. Yes.
Right.
Good
So,
question.
so
That's
did
just
you?
Bad answer. Not a good answer,
No, it's good.
that's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay.
yeah. So did is this is your book published or is it through a publisher?
Yeah, it's through Amazon as well as Ingram. So Ingram helps get it distributed through the bookstores, and Amazon, more to the general mass public quicker as well. So I did a dual publishing through both of them.
Nice, very nice. And so the title is The Grand Secret, and obviously the Grand is the Grand Hotel. But what was the evolution of the title like for you? What?
Well, the first my first idea was, murder at the Grand Hotel, the day that shocked the auto industry. And when I met with my writers group, they all said, well, when you look at the bestsellers out there, and it's usually 1 to 3 word titles.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, all right, kind of collectively, we talked through a lot of ideas around, and they said, well, how about the grand scheme? And I said,
Oh
I
yeah,
like that.
that's a good
I
one.
like that. But then I said, something about secret feels better to me. And having the grand in the name, since it's at the Grand Hotel, that only seemed appropriate. So we went with that, and that's where we're at.
Nice, nice. Then
Yeah.
did you come up with the title as you were writing, or once you'd had it the pretty much the story finished?
Once it was done. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. I had the initial title all through the writing, years and years, and then switched it around at the end when it came time to really focus on what it was going to be. Yeah.
So you
So
said years and years. How
yeah.
long did it take you to write it?
Probably 20 years because, I've got my real job. I was raising my girls and they were in sports and I was coaching and all those types of things. And I travel quite a bit. My family, we travel together as well. So, yeah. And then the revisions and the revisions and the revisions. So.
Yeah, that's dedication. So when you talked about your writing process, are you doing that like just as you have time, or are you now dedicating more of your time to writing, or is it still the same process where you're just, yeah, I've got an hour here, I've got an hour there, I'm traveling here, so I can do this on the plane.
Yeah, actually, I've got a third one that's done, and it's kind of the person who's involved with this in this story continues on the third one.
Okay.
However, I really want to focus on getting this out into the mass market. I've had great support from friends and family, but I really want this to be successful. I really want the mass market to get a chance to put their hands on it and give it a taste and see what they think. So I don't want to go through all that work on a third book if it's just going to be friends and family. I really want to have commercial success with this, and so I'm doing everything I can to get it out into the public's exposure. Yeah.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
thank you very much for this opportunity because this helps with that journey so much.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, it's great. And it's fun to, because we have a couple of friends who are writers, and it's just fun to understand like the process and how the ideas form. So, you mentioned like that your work is related to travel and booking travel, but your book is more focused. I mean, obviously they're running around either running through the hotel trying to get away from the two bad guys and scurrying into rooms, or which obviously isn't something that you do for work, but uh, ha has any of, and I guess what I'm trying to get to is, how has your work, your day-to-day life influenced how the themes that you're writing about?
Well, you're really coming up with some good questions here, Chuck. Making me think here for a change. Um, yeah, I guess for this book in particular, just my job taking me all through these different areas, and I got to see these pictures of the UAW history
Hmm.
things taking place. And there's even big signs on the back of their parking lot saying, if your car is not American made, it will be towed at your expense. And you remember during the Iacocca days at Chrysler,
Yeah,
Japan bashing vehicles and all that type of thing. So
that's right.
in that way, my job influenced me in regards to that. Um, and getting a sense of the different cultures within the state of Michigan, from the Upper Peninsula, which feels like you're in Alaska,
Yeah,
and I just wanted to kind of bring some of that to the table so that people that don't get out and see the state that maybe live right here in the Metro Detroit area, let them know what's out there, and to hopefully we're going to want to go see it. So a
Yeah.
lot of that was kind of behind my feelings as well.
awesome.
Well, Chuck and I travel a little bit. I'm not nearly as much as you do. But I think there's an element of problem solving that goes into travel, right? Like you land in a foreign country and you're trying to figure out what train to get on, or you're trying to like, oh, I've missed my flight, so now what do I do? Or how do I navigate, finding the right driver, right? Like all of those things, right? And I think that there's an element of problem solving in the book, right? Like, and so I think for me, did any of like your problem solving as a person that works in the travel industry kind of play into that? Because I think of problem solving every day, right? Like,
Yeah. That's a great relationship type question, which I never thought about. But yeah, this whole journey in this book for this couple that's in a bad situation, this whole book is a problem solving journey that they're trying to figure out who did this, why,
Yeah.
how can we prove that we're not the ones that did it and get these people that did it? So it's a one big problem after another that they're encountering, and coming up with a lot of obstacles that are, literally, life threatening. And yeah, I guess when you're traveling on your own, that's something that's very much part of the experience, especially when you're doing everything on your own versus doing it, like buying a package where it's all set up for you that makes it much easier type of
right.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were carving out the story, and you had talked about it a little bit earlier, when you were given the basic, giving our listeners the basic idea of what the story is, but as you were writing, did you find yourself like, I've read other authors talk about the fact that as they're writing, the story kind of writes itself, and that they have an idea, and then all of a sudden, oh, this is going to change, and they don't really expect it. Did that happen to you, as far as like, did you have the basic concept of the story, and as you were writing, you said, oh no, they can't be, downriver. They have to be over, I don't know, Grand River, some other area. Did you kind of change the story as the characters revealed it to you?
Yeah, there was a lot of that, where you create a character from your initial your point of origin,
Mm-hmm.
and then you realize who they become and who they are, who you've created has to take it in another direction because this type of person would not do this type of thing that you're now making them do. And I have a house full of women, my wife and my two grown daughters, and I would let them read it. And sometimes we'd get into some very passionate discussions and be like, you know what? This is not how women think. You can't do it like this. So
Yeah.
I valued their input highly. I made changes where I really felt that, their points made sense. So yeah, there was a bit of that. And it was good discussions and those input from others. Writing a book is definitely a team sport if you're going to make it the best that it can be. And that was something I learned along the way as well. It's not something that people just do on their own. It's really a lot that goes into it if you're going to have a good product in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So what has the reception been like so far for folks that have read the book, and what are they telling you? What do they think of it?
Yeah, it's been really, really interesting. It's been really positive. I have people that, have told me I literally stayed up all night or I did the book in 2 days. And some of these people are not real avid readers. And to hear them say that it really pulled them through and they really wanted to just keep going,
Yeah.
that was pretty special. Yes.
Awesome.
So that's
Excellent.
why I feel like I got to get outside my spectrum of friends and family, and I really got to get it out there in the rest of the world because there's something here that needs to be shared.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it almost felt like a screenplay in a certain way when I was reading it, but that I don't read a lot of screenplays. I don't know if I've ever read a screenplay, but that kind of comes to mind. You see it played out as a movie sort of in my
Wow.
head.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Brenda. That's a great compliment, I think. Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Um, so I had a question in there and now I've lost it. Um, I've lost it. I'm
Oh.
sorry. Go for it, Chuck. Find a question.
That happens all the time to me. Well,
Ed, I was curious when you mentioned just a little bit ago that you were working on, this is basically part of a series. Is that correct? Or you
yeah, the
hope that
other
it'll
one
be
is
part of a series?
the final end of the story, so to speak. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, y- and you mentioned that you're really pushing on this book now. What is that process like for you as far as promoting the book? I mean, obviously, you reached out to us, which we're thankful for, but I'm just curious from a promotional standpoint, like what does that involve to try to get your story out to as many people as possible?
Yeah, it's very similar to my job. It's continuous rejection, continuous keeping at it day in and day out. And it's calling the various bookstores, asking if, they'll support maybe a signing and going through the process where either they buy it or it's, where you just bring in your books and you do it, or you share a
Consignment,
little bit of
yeah.
the sales. It's various aspects of that, in conjunction with reaching out to various media, different types of media, newspaper, the local magazines, things like you folks on the
Hmm.
podcast. Um, the NPR world has some of that's been really helpful in the various venues throughout the state, like WGVU and
Yeah.
WNMU, just to name a few. And I've got some things with WKAR coming up, and I've reached out to one of the Free Press columnists, and we have a scheduled interview that I'm hoping will come to fruition down the road. So it's trying to build the momentum, and when I reach out to people and send my emails, putting a little bit of the what I've done so far from a media standpoint to build the credibility that this is a real thing. And so all these types of activities are starting to get the momentum going. So I'm hoping for bigger and better types of media as well. And then, of course, going back to the bookstores and keeping them in the loop
Yep.
as well. So it's kind of doing it all and keeping that momentum going, and hoping to build on that as well.
Cool.
So do you have an author page?
Yeah, and that's in the Amazon. When you look it up, I think it's Author Central and Ed McKenna, and what else? If you look up Ed McKenna in Amazon, they should come up. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Just curious for our listeners would like to find you, what would be the best way to do that? And that would to be to go on Amazon.
And most likely Amazon, or yeah, most for sure is Amazon is the best way. Ed McKenna, The Grand Secret, or just Ed McKenna, that should come up.
Nice. And you mentioned the bookstores. Do you have any of those author signings or readings set up already?
Yeah, I've got one. I did an island bookstore at the Mackinac Island last year, and I've got another one scheduled at the end of May. I think it's May 31st. Yeah, May 31st. I'll be at the Island Bookstore at 1 o'clock. I'm doing one at the Two Dandelions Bookstore in Brighton coming
Oh,
up. I think it's April. What is that? April something. April 9th, maybe? No.
oh, next week.
April 19th. Yeah.
19th. All right.
Between
2
1 and
weeks.
3 in Brighton. So the Two Dandelions Bookstore will be doing a signing there. So I've
Nice.
got a couple of things in the works right now. Yeah.
Excellent. And how has that been? How is, I've never done something like that. So you've done the one at the Island Bookstore. What is that experience like for you?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. People come up and they're asking, "Oh, what's this about?" And you tell them a little bit about your story, and if it's their type of genre, that usually captures their interest, especially with it's something local.
Yeah.
Um, and it's fun hearing a little bit about their stories and what they're interested. A lot of people love to converse, and again, it's just interacting and getting to know other people. And signing them is a lot of fun. I always sign off as the Twisted Ed McKenna, just to have some fun with that. I always tell people, "Oh no, now you're going to read my book, and then you're really going to know how twisted I am." So, but the people that know me already, they already know that. So,
Oh, really? Oh, so
but
that's
it's
a
a lot of fun. Yeah,
yeah. So Twisted is part of your like backstory as far as with your family
a
and
little
friends.
bit. Yeah.
Awesome.
Got to have fun with it, right?
Because it's funny because I know a guy. He's a singer songwriter. His name is Mike Ward, and he's in Detroit. And like I said, singer songwriter, but he calls his music psycho songs. And I talked to him. I go, why? And the music's not like psychotic or anything. It's
Yeah.
really nice. And I'm like, why did you call it psycho songs? But he played hockey, and he was known as Psycho Mike on the ice. So So you don't
He's
play hockey
sticking.
as Twisted Ed, right?
No, no. He's sticking with his brand, right? Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think we talked about where they can find your work and what's coming up.
So the best place is on Amazon is your author page.
Yes. Yep. They can find that there.
Okay, and then but your upcoming signings, where can they find those?
Wow. The only place would be like the Two Dandelions bookstore on their website, as well as the Island bookstore. And I don't know if they even put that on their website or not. So
Okay.
that's probably an area I'm lacking, is finding a platform to announce these types of things. So that's
Yeah, yeah.
glad you
Very good.
brought that up.
So do you have a Substack page?
I do not. I do not.
Oh, you
That
need
might
to
be yeah,
explore
because there's
Substack.
lots of authors and writers out there. That would be and that'd be a way to farm out your stuff, and you can. I mean, that's what we do. Is we use Substack as our newsletter platform, and
Okay.
it's actually the platform for this podcast.
All
So
right.
yeah, that would be
Substack page.
yeah,
So something
Substack.
worth looking
Yeah.
into. Thank you very much for sharing that with me.
Yeah, I would highly recommend Substack. I mean, if you don't have like a website like built for your author page where you can
Hmm.
publish, because I mean, you probably looked at Brita Miller. She's got a fabulous site, like with all of her, like media kit and all of like what all of her upcoming events and stuff. But if you don't have that, and that's a lot of work, right? And it's
Yep.
expense. But Substack, you can do it pretty quickly and easily, and build that out. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's great
Substack.
to know. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll link in our show notes. We'll link in our show notes to your author page on Amazon so people can find it there.
Thank you.
Are you on Facebook, Twitter? Yeah.
Yes, I'm on Facebook. There's Ed McKenna Books, Instagram, basically Ed McKenna Books, um, TikTok page. I think, what is it? Thrillers and Cocktails, or Cocktails and Thrillers. But there's
Excellent.
not a lot of content there, but the one or two that I have is kind of interesting. Yes.
All right.
All right.
Check that one. Awesome.
We'll be sure to include links to those in our show notes so people can easily find you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? I got a couple more questions, so I'm kind of wrapping up the interview here a little bit.
Sure.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners about the book, about yourself? Mm, Michigan?
Yeah, I think if someone wants something that's going to be entertaining, it will be also educational about the the historic aspects of our state. And they may learn about some places they've never been to that they're going to want to go to after they read the book. And basically look at the first 5 pages. And if that doesn't pull you through to want to turn another one and another one, then it's probably not the right book for you. But I think if they give that much of a try, I try and capture the same spirit with a James Patterson approach, where if the first couple pages don't get you, you're probably not going to enjoy it. And because that's important to me when I read a book, I want
Yeah.
it to grab me right away, or don't have the patience to get through, 20 pages before it starts to get good. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the way I try and write.
Yeah, it's great to when you get a book that just is a page turner, there's those are definitely fun. And so you mentioned, and that was a question I meant to ask you earlier, like are there authors that that inspire you that you mentioned James Patterson. Are there others that you were, particularly influential?
Yeah, Sandra Brown, she has a couple good ones, but I think her book, The Envy, was like my favorite. John Grisham, of course,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
I like the style of James Patterson, and I try and emulate his style in the fact that they're short chapters. Try and make them so they're not overly detailed. They're easy to keep the story moving, and at the end of each chapter, create it so, well, you just have to find out what's going to happen on the next chapter by the way you end it.
Yeah.
So I try and keep it simple, and enjoyable in that regard. And of course, the character conflict, and then the other conflicts that are outside of just the characters as well, the situation and that type of thing.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So lastly, we have one last question. It's kind of like our Michigan question. What's your perfect Michigan day? And where would you go and what would you do? And what beverage would you finish it off with?
Wow. I've had so many of those types of days throughout Michigan. Going up north just puts you in a total different mindset of freedom and open to nature. All those things are important to me, but my wife and I love to take hikes and bikes. We met on Mackinac Island on a bike trip called the Zoo de Mac.
Oh, cool.
But I would say, yeah, it's something as simple as either taking a hike through the woods up north, or even, walking around the Mackinac Islands on the bike trail,
Mhm.
and sitting up there on the porch of the Grand Hotel with a Bud Light, or maybe a margarita, to letting the breeze hit us in the face, and just looking over this expanse of the Mackinac Straits and taking it all in as a nice, great moment.
Awesome. That sounds good. Especially with it nice and warm, not like right now where it's like only 30, but yeah.
Right.
Like 75 and the sun out. Yes, that sounds
What
awesome.
would be yours, Brenda, and what would be yours, Chuck?
Oh,
Whoa.
interesting question.
Turning the tables.
That's
Wait.
Yeah,
right.
you're
Back
the
at
first
ya.
person that's done that.
Oh man. Are you gonna go first?
I'm thinking about it. It would have to be someplace in the UP. Um, and I would say probably hiking up in the Keweenaw Peninsula. There's so many great places to hike up there. I'd have to check in with our friend Jay Clancy to see which trail he'd recommend that day, but there's some wonderful trails. Jay Clancy owns the Cognition Brewery up in Marquette, and
Okay.
he's never steered us wrong. So I would say, Jay, where should we go hiking? And then I would spend the night at the Fitz, which is this wonderful, wonderful um like inn that it hangs on the side of Lake Superior up in the Keweenaw.
Wow.
Um
Wow.
and I would end it with a dinner there. They have the most amazing food and they have a wonderful bar. I don't know, whatever wonderful, crisp, cold um Michigan dry white wine they have. I would have that. Um, and that's how that would be a perfect day for me in Michigan. And of
Love
course, I
it.
would be with my friends and
Yes.
Chuck.
Love it.
Awesome.
Love it.
Awesome.
What about you,
Let's.
Chuck?
I would probably be up in the UP as well. I do love it up there, and I would say that we would do the trail up. Oh shoot, Hogback Mountain up in Marquette, just north between Big Bay and Marquette. And
Yeah.
so we'd spend the day going up there and hiking around and checking out the scenery, then come back into town, just go a little bit west over to Barrel and Beam, get some food, and then have, I would hope Life in Michigan is in cans, and I'd have a can of Life in Michigan.
All right.
There you go. That would be a
Love
pretty
it.
awesome
Yeah.
day too.
A
I'd
couple of
take
good
his
ones.
too. Yeah.
Yes. Me too.
Awesome. Well, Ed, thanks again for being on Life in Michigan. We had a great time talking with you and really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing how the book does. And hopefully people will get out and check out a reading at one of those bookstores, at the Two Dandelions in April and the Island House, I think you said end of May. So
Yeah.
we'll put
Thank
the
you
dates
so
up
much
on the
for this
thing.
opportunity. Yeah. I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
enjoyed this as well. And again, can't thank you enough for the opportunity, Chuck and Brenda.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Continued success on all the rest of your stuff and journeys that you're doing out there.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You too, Ed.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a
Yep.
great day.
See ya.
You too.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service to catch every episode of Life in Michigan. Help us spread the word by rating the show, sharing it with your friends, your neighbors, your family, your mail carrier. Share it with everybody, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Stay connected by following us on our website and social media. This is a Life in Michigan production. Until next time, take care and have a fantabulous day in Michigan.